that they had that, immigration enforcement is cruel and unusual, has to be done away. Detention is akin to concentration camps. ICE deportation officers are Nazi jackbooted Nazi thugs. That the flights out, deportations out of the country are sending people to the gas chambers, and they believe it, and they put that into place. And the way they did it was first with rhetoric. The immigrants, you should know, are smart people. They are not ignorant peasants. That's the first thing you should understand. I've spent a lot of time. I respect most of those immigrants that I've met. I get it. They are listening to every single policy pronouncement that comes out of Washington religiously, like their lives depended on it. Their futures certainly did, their economic futures. And so when they heard Joe Biden come out and say, we are not going to turn away families that reach our border, we're going to let them in. We're going to welcome them because that's who we are as an American people. We are not going to turn away unaccompanied minors. We are not going to turn away this class, and the other category. We're going to let them in. Well, what do you think they would do? They heard the president say these things over and over again. Now, that's why they started coming even before he was president. The numbers started ticking up because they heard this and they're like, we're going in because we want to be there for the transition. So remember, at the time there was COVID, so we had a pandemic era rule in place called Title 42. Some of you might have heard this. That's 100% pushbacks. Everybody that gets caught at the border gets pushed back into Mexico with no chance for asylum because we don't want to spread COVID in our detention centers and or beyond the detention centers. So close to 90% of everybody that Border Patrol caught was turned back to Mexico. That's the border that Biden inherited. They hated Title 42 because of that. Those progressives that were in there, the political appointee class, hated it and said so out loud all the time. So did the president, and so did the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. So what did they do? They tore exemptions in it. The exemptions initially were for the families. So from now on, we're not going to Title 42 the families. We're letting them in. We're not going to Title 42 unaccompanied minors, so we're letting them in. We're not going to Title 42 people from Asia and Africa and really far away, distant places. We're letting them in to claim asylum, and then we're going to release them in. And on that day, they poured in by the tens of thousands because of course they would. Of course they would. Villages in Honduras got word of this. I've never met a migrant who did not have a modern cell phone fully hooked up to social media and the internet. It's live time intelligence. So they're seeing all their relatives and neighbors get across, take selfies next to the American flag on the bus on their way to whatever city they want. All they had to do is turn themselves in to Border Patrol. And the Border Patrol, they wouldn't run and hide anymore. They were turning themselves in by the thousands. And we would take them in. They were under orders, and then we would stamp them in to the country. You're released on your own recognizance to report to any ICE office in your town of preference. That's how all these hundreds of thousands got in and started getting. They were give-ups. They would give up, turn themselves in. And so if you're me, and I've been down on the border for a long time, you've never seen anything like this. This is usually there's cat and mouse, cops and robbers run and hide. I'm down there now seeing hundreds of thousands of people, just thousands all around me, just trample through the Rio Grande and up the other side by the hundreds and hundreds all day, all night, all week, all month, till we were having 300,000 a month. Imagine Super Bowl stadium all the way full, 70,000. 3 and 4 of those every single month for years poured into this country just like I described. I remember going down to the Rio Grande in Roma, near Roma, Texas, and going down to the riverbank at night and seeing 5 rafts at a time rowing across, filled to the brim with immigrants, hitting the rocks, unloading in front of the Border Patrol, in front of Texas DPS troopers and the military who were just helping them in. Watch out, watch your step. Here, oh, there's rocks over here. Let me help you with the baby. Nobody had ever seen anything like this. This is absolutely upside down. Like gravity disappeared or something. It was just been like that for years. And what it amounted to was the greatest mass migration crisis border event in American history. And I believe, I've done some research on this, that it's the greatest one in world history. Nothing like this. 10 million people got in a 36-month, 40-month period and were released into the country. Think about that. A city the size of Chicago and LA together, poured in and they're here. They're still here. And the thing that I really want to emphasize about that is that that this was done on purpose. They knew that they were doing it, and they did everything they could to tweak the system so that more would come through. The only time that they ever tried to put the brakes on was near the midterm elections in 2022, when it looked like, people were kind of starting to figure this out. So they started doing deportations, air deportations, big scale air deportations, and the numbers went straight down. Because the thing that most Americans don't understand about illegal immigration is really how simple it is. There's a very simple calculus about all of it. I'm going to share that with you right now. It's the fruit of many months and years of interviewing immigrants. And it goes like this. If you're going to beg, borrow, and steal or sell everything you own to raise $10,000 for the smuggling fee to get here, you want to know with high probability that it's going to pay off with an entry and a stay so that you can work. An entry and a stay. If you know that you're getting in at about 100%, you're spending the money and you're coming. Conversely, if you're going to gamble 10 grand or 5 grand or whatever it is, it's a fortune for a lot of those people. And you know that you're going to probably be deported and stuck in Mexico or flown all the way back to square one in your home village, you're not going to do it. It's just that simple. It's that simple. If you get a job in a job offer in Chicago, you're going to do a calculus. Oh, what's their cost of living? Based on what's my raise? How is it going to financially benefit me? And on the basis of that calculus, you'll decide to take the job or leave it. It's just that simple. So what the Biden people did was they made it almost 100% guaranteed that you were going to get in. And all you had to do is just show up and we'll let you in. It was unbelievable, unprecedented. So understand that as we kind of move forward with this, because what I'll tell you is that the state of the border now, I was just in Mexico City interviewing migrants. There's camps down there. And they're all freaked out about. I was 2 trips to Mexico in the last couple of months, and I'm interviewing immigrants down there, and they're listening to Tom Homan out there saying, "I'm going to deport everybody. You're through." Remember what I told you? When Biden was saying we're letting everybody in, they heard it. What do you think? Right? So why do you think Homan is out there running around on the media constantly? Guess. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's a psyops. He's doing psychological operations. He understands exactly what I am telling you. They're listening. So I'm down there in Mexico City and Tapachula, and I'm interviewing immigrants, and they all heard it. And what did they tell me? We're going home. We're going home. What are you going to do after Inauguration Day? Well, I'm listening. I'm not going to get deported. I don't want to go over there and spend the money and get deported. I'm going home. So that brings me to the other very important, in my opinion, narrative that has to be debunked, that you're going to hear constantly over the next 4 years, which is that we are sending these people home to certain death. Okay, that is largely untrue. There are, I'm sure, some, I don't want to be absolute about it, but from my experience interviewing thousands of these people over the years, I'm going to tell you that the very vast majority are not fleeing any kind of death, any kind of horrible persecution, anything other than they're kind of poor. They want to make more money. They want to send money home. They want to help their family. Economic migrants. Economic migration. These are not people fleeing persecution. You're going to hear this nonstop. You're going to hear it. You're already hearing it. You're already hearing it. Get ready for that. I want to give you share a little anecdote with you. Excuse me. The one of the largest groups that have been coming through here are Guatemalans. Hundreds of thousands of Guatemalans have poured into the border. A lot of them are coming from the central highlands of Guatemala. So I wanted to go there and see, well, what's all the persecution in the central highlands of Guatemala? They're all applying for asylum, and we can't deport. You don't deport them. They're fleeing terrible violence and death and horrors that are beyond your imagination. We have to believe them. So I go there, and the first thing I notice now this is like Mayan kind of, they most of them don't even, these are indigenous people in the central highlands of Guatemala. And what I find are these mammoth mansions going up in these little Indian villages where the normal dwelling is like sticks and mud and tin roofs maybe. And then there's these 10,000 square foot mansions, 4 stories, with ornate windows, ornate doors, tile, all of this. So I just start interviewing, and it was a surprise. I didn't know I was going to see that. So once I started to interview the people building them, the answer that I got about it was, we sent Jose to the United States so that he could send money home so that we could build a house that's as big as our neighbor's house. We want one of those. Everybody around here's got one of those, and we want one too. And when he's done, when we finish it out, he's going to move back here and live in it. Well, what about government persecution? And where's all the gangs? There's no gangs around here. These are the highlands. We're subsistence, proud traditionalists, farmers, nothing like that. So the anecdote there is to just show you that very largely this is predicated on a lie, an asylum lie, that we need to give them protection and that we can't deport them because we're sending them to certain death. Venezuelans, just recently, I have a piece up in the New York Post today, about an hour before I came here. Go look it up, Todd Bensman, New York Post, about this very thing I'm about to tell you. Is the Biden administration, in one of its last acts, was to extend something called temporary protective status. on hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans and Haitians, 1 million people altogether, setting it up so that the Trump administration can't deport them. They're trying to stick us with facts on the ground and make it difficult to clean up the mess. So why do I bring this up? Because I've been interviewing Venezuelans for years on the trails. I've done all sorts of reporting about the Venezuelans. I never met a Venezuelan yet who was coming from Venezuela. Never. There are 8 million Venezuelans left Venezuela 10 years ago, and they've been living safely, happily, and very often prosperously in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, the Caribbean. They haven't lived in years in Venezuela, so they're saying we can't deport. They need temporary protected status, which prevents deportation, because we can't send them back to Venezuela. Venezuela's terrible. But it's a lie. They weren't living in Venezuela. They were happy where they were, and they came here and fraudulently claimed asylum or temporary parole, humanitarian parole, which is this other program that they did where they fly them in over the border into all of our cities, sight unseen, or they walk them in over the U.S.-Mexico land border and give them 2-year permits to live here on humanitarian protection as though they're coming from a dangerous place. So understand that, and the Haitians. I never, even to this day, now toward the end of, the last trip, when I was in Colombia in August, I did meet some Venezuelans that were coming directly from Venezuela. A couple dozen, but they were literally the first ones that I've met in years. All of them had been living elsewhere for years, with asylum in other countries, with residency and protection of these other countries, with job and work authorization, everything that you could need to protect from a dangerous country. The Haitians. I still have not met a Haitian who came from Haiti. Not one. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of them because they're very numerous, Haitians, and they're good interviews. They mostly speak Spanish or Portuguese. Why? Because they've all been living in Brazil or Chile for years and years, happily. They love Chile, the nightlife, jobs, asylum, residency, all the privileges. But what do you do when you cross? The Americans opened up the border, and you can upgrade easily, an economic upgrade. Maybe you have relatives here. They're letting us all in. Why are you coming now when you were doing great for years in Ecuador and you loved Ecuador? Well, because the Americans are letting us in. It's that simple. So they're laying their money down and they're getting right in. They don't need asylum. They're not seeking asylum. It's just the mechanism that they're using to get in. So know that the vast majority of the people that are crossing, even people, well, let me quickly say, what do you do if you're Haitian and you cross the border, but you've been living in Chile for 8 years and all your kids are Chilean citizens or Brazilian citizens? How do you fix that? You're not going to get asylum if the Americans find that out. You throw your ID cards down on the riverbank as your last act. Your passports, you tear them and you burn them. You burn it ever you can burn it. You can burn it. If you can't, you twist it until nobody can see. And if you can't do either of those, you just throw it. And so as a result, I have hundreds of those things in grocery bags at my house. My wife hates it. What are you doing with all this stuff? Ick. But, occasionally I pull them out on TV or something. But the point is that it's fraud and it's a lie. Now, the people that are coming, I've met people from all over the world. 190 countries are represented down there. That's brand new. The whole world heard about this Everybody heard about this. Every nation of the Middle East, every nation of Asia, 75,000 Chinese, 40,000 Russians coming over the border. I met them from Dagestan, from Togo lately. I've been seeing of Vietnam. There are hundreds and hundreds coming in from Vietnam. Like, what? Nobody is missing out on this. And that's something that is a record-breaking national security problem. Record-breaking numbers, national security problem. We don't know who they are. But if you are fleeing a terrible country, and Togo's not a great country, Mauritania is not such a great country, I get it. But you don't have to cross 10 or 15 other safe countries first to get to the United States for your safety. That is not asylum. That is, if you're drowning and, 5 people throw rafts out to you, or like life-saving rings or whatever those things are, you're going to grab the one that's closest to you, and that's that. You're not going to fish around and swim around and wade over to the really nice one. It's bogus. Okay. So I want you to you're going to hear this a lot. Now, what else are you going to hear? Because I'm going to shift gears a little bit to what we're facing, and I'm not keeping track of time. Am I still good? The idea here is that maybe I'll talk for 45 minutes or an hour, and then I'll be happy to take questions. I just came back from Chicago. I spent about 5 days reporting in Chicago. Why did I go to Chicago? Because there was the first ever terror attack conducted in the United States by a border crossing migrant. This guy was from Mauritania. You didn't hear about it much because the media didn't cover it. It happened on October 26th. That was about a week or so before the election. Chicago media, politicians were not about to, this is my opinion, not about to hand Donald Trump, the candidate, such a beautifully gift-wrapped political gift as a terror attack in a place like Chicago, a blue place filled with immigrants like Chicago, where all their people are screaming and yelling and complaining about the 500,000 immigrants that showed up in Illinois over the last few years. The guy comes over the border from, he's coming from Mauritania. We've had 25,000 Mauritanians cross the border. Also Senegalese, people from all over the Sahel region. I've met them from all over that area, and they come in. And he ends up in Chicago, and he catches the virus, you know what I mean, the jihad virus, and he decides he's going to massacre Jews in their synagogue, Orthodox Jews in their synagogues. He's mad, clearly, about Gaza and the war there, and he comes to his massacre wearing one of those green vests that you see all the pro-Hamas demonstrators wearing around the world, those green workman's vests. Sometimes they're yellow, but you'll see him. Go look it up. He's wearing one of those. He's got a semi-automatic handgun. He can't quite make it to the synagogue because there's a Jewish man right in front of him, and he shoots him in the back. That starts it. The police eventually come. I'm going to give you the short version. Paramedics. He disappears. His gun jammed. That's why the Jewish victim survived, because his gun jammed. So he retreats into somebody's backyard to clear the jam, waits for the cops to come, and then he opens fire on the police, and there is a furious gun battle. They fire back. This Jewish neighborhood is just riddled with bullets, gunfire. I interviewed the people inside their homes. These are Jews who in the forefront of their mind is October 7 in Israel, and they're thinking they're coming for us now. What do we do? They're going to be inside my house, burning, raping, and killing us. That's the level of fear that was going on in this neighborhood just from the gunfire out there, rounds hitting. Now, luckily, the police were able to wound him. They shot him up pretty well. He was still toward the end just trying to lift and keep firing, but they bring him down and arrest him and charge him with terrorism. Thus, you have the national security threat that is often discussed and described by intelligence community people, by FBI Director Chris Wray, that we are in an extremely elevated threat situation from the border, and it happened. So anyway, I was there and I did a 3-part series. You can find that at my organization's website, cis.org. I got caught a little bit of a cold in Chicago, which I've got a lingering, but don't worry, I'm not infectious. But the point is that we have a problem inside the country that's left from this catastrophe at the border. And what the incoming Trump administration is planning to do about it is, you're hearing it, a mass deportation program after they sew up the border. So first they've got to suture shut the border to stop the hemorrhaging in. Next, we got to clear them out. So what you'll be seeing is starting immediately. This is going to be on day one. They've got about 100 executive orders already drafted. Probably half of them, I've been told, relate to the border. I don't know what they all are, but I can take a pretty good guess at what some of them are. The first thing is, remember how I told you that the thing that immigrants care about the very, very most, that prompts them to come here or stay home, is whether or not they're going to get in, right? So that's what you have to do. You have to make it so that they know they are not going to get in. And then they'll go home. We know this because we've done this before. We did this during the first Trump administration. So the way that you do that is there's a couple things you have to do. One is you have to put in place a policy that you may have heard about this, called Remain in Mexico. Remain in Mexico is a way of denying somebody the ability to abuse our asylum system by just claiming they need asylum to gain release into the country. That's what they've been doing all this time. Now you have to wait in Mexico for your asylum claim. You don't get released into the U.S. And nobody comes for the great Mexican dream. When they find out that they're going to get stuck in Mexico, they go home. How do I know this? Because the first time that Remain in Mexico was in place in 2019, the country expelled about 70,000. And when they'd expelled about 20,000 of those 70,000, I went down there to interview them. What are you guys going to do now that you're here? You're going to wait for your asylum claim? And they're like, of course not. We didn't come here for asylum. We thought we were going to get released. That's why we came. I'm going home. And so many were going home that the United Nations IOM immigration, IOM is the International Office for Migration at the UN, was organizing a bus caravan to fill up with people that needed to go back to Central America, and had these caravans driving the other way back home. That's what's going to happen again. I saw it. It'll happen again with that. Now, there's other expulsion things that they're going to do other than Remain in Mexico. 212F, I don't want to bog you down. There are going to probably be some other ways. But when people crossed our border in the past, they would give themselves up because take me to Chicago, take me to Indianapolis, which I heard there's plenty of them. take me to whatever, just release me and take me somewhere. And now they're going to be caught and detained. The worst thing ever. That means if you drop 10 grand, you lost it, buddy. You're going to be on the hook for that. So these deportations that Homan is talking about, that you hear about, once those get underway in earnest, those have a tremendous deterring power. Absolutely unbelievable deterring power. Already they're down there talking about it. I don't want to go up there. They're going to deport me. They're saying they're going to deport me. So the way to sew the border up is simple. It's really pretty easy. It's that calculus. You just make it likelier than not that you're going to get sent home or get stuck in Mexico. End of story. The hard part is to reverse the damage inside the country. And I say damage, we don't have enough time to go into how transformative this was, but it was transformative. You can't have 10 million people suddenly come into the country with hands out, needy, most of them illegal, and not have impacts across a broad range of quality of life and sectors. Our healthcare sector, our schools, our public school systems, they got to go somewhere. Our housing, our jails, the crime, the police time, the court time, all of it, everything about it, and the crime that's going on that you all know darn well is happening all around you. You can't miss it. The media, by the way, I want to just say this, that after 4.5 years, imagine you're me and you've been doing this for 4 years straight, and you have a book that's been out for almost 2 years where the subtitle is The Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. And people would just thought that it was a polemic. The greatest, how Joe Biden unleashed the greatest border crisis in U.S. history. Not reading that. New York Times 2 weeks ago, after 4 years of this, comes out with a big article, an analytical piece saying, hey, we just had the greatest border crisis, mass migration crisis in U.S. history. This is just a few weeks ago. I'm not kidding. And it concludes that the reason for it was the policies of Joe Biden. They said it 4 years too late, 4 years after the fact, 2 years after I wrote a whole book on just the first 2 years of it, right? It's absurd. The point I'm making there is that your media has failed you terribly on this case. They're going to fail you again. Don't count on your media. I don't know what to tell you, what to count on, but somehow the American people saw through what was happening and elected Donald Trump and he knew it because he never shut up about the immigration. Hey, what's your policy on trade? The border. It's terrible. Hey, what's your thing on abortion? The border. And it just went on and on like that. We all saw it. He knew that we all knew what happened, because what happened was, for the first couple of years, most of you in Indiana, you weren't down there. You don't know what's going on if there's no media showing it. The administration's official position was there is nothing unusual happening. It's seasonal. They were saying that. I'm down there with like thousands all around me just pouring through, and I'm like, the Darien Gap, 2 million people pouring through from all over the world. I mean, like, it was amazing. It was this huge, unbelievable human event that you just can't even imagine, most of you. But eventually the pipeline clogged up, it backed up, and it burst all over you. All over Chicago, Denver, Boston, massive deficits, emergency rooms clogged up, people panhandling all over the streets, and crime, people getting murdered, raped, And we saw it. You couldn't hide it because there's Facebook. You know, there are other alternative ways to get your information now. We saw it. Everybody saw it. I was with somebody here today who was like, yeah, you know, you can see it. They're all over. You know, you go to the Home Depot, they're on the streets. You see it. You can't not see it. How are we going to clean it up? Well, they're talking about, now, you know, Trump, he talks sometimes in hyperbole, but we all know that now. We know how to kind of sift through that. And he's saying we're going to have the greatest mass deportation program in U.S. history. That's what he says. But let me tell you what the problem is. It's going to take a minute. It's not going to happen right away. And the reason is because the Biden administration has systematically dismantled the detention and deportation machine. What I mean is literally dismantled it. For example, remember all those family units that have poured in by the hundreds of thousands with kids? Well, they got rid of all the family detention facilities, closed them. Now they got to reopen them. We had private detention companies that we contracted with that had all kinds of detention facilities all over the country. They canceled all the contracts and shut them down. So we don't have the bed space right now to deal. So that's why one of the things that you're probably going to see in the very first week, maybe the first day, is maybe an emergency declaration so that Trump can bring online military facilities, okay? Because we have space in those, and they can set those up pretty quickly, and you can bring family groups, keep them together. Nobody wants to separate families. We can deport them together. We can use military personnel to augment the terrible state that our ICE deportation officers are in. We had 6,000 of them in the beginning of the Biden administration. They chained them to their desks in the very beginning and said, you're not allowed to deport. No deportation, just play video games. And that's what they've been doing for 4 years. And they left. There was attrition. So we only have, I don't know what the number is now, but they're going to have to boost that. We've got a personnel problem. So we've got to boost the numbers of deportation officers. We have to reverse the policies that chain them to their desk. And there's going to be lawfare at every step of the way. There's good reporting. Those advocates, the ones that I was telling you about before, those progressive types, well, they're already organized in an army of lawyers. There's nothing that the Trump administration is going to do coming out of the gate that's not going to get sued on right away. But Remain in Mexico is already clear. They did that already in the first term, and it's clear they can do that, and they can probably do some other things too. But the point is that you have to scope this down. So you hear the administration saying we're going to go after the criminal aliens first, and who can be against that? Well, everybody's against that, evidently. So you have. We'll take questions and just hold that. I'll get you first. That you have Chicago saying we are never going to tell ICE when somebody's getting released from jail who's illegal. We're gonna protect them. When somebody's getting out of prison, to my dying days, I'll never understand that. How an elected leader could. That's what sanctuary policy is, by the way. It's not really about protecting anyone else except the criminal aliens. You should know that. You should know that. It's not about protecting lawnmower gardeners and housekeepers. It's about we're not telling ICE when somebody's getting out of jail. That's what it is. That's what it means. 287G is the requirement that they do that, and they're not doing it. San Diego declared itself a super sanctuary city right down there on the border. LA, all of them all the blue cities are like, we're going to fight you tooth and nail. We're going to protect their criminal aliens. What? Okay. So you're going to get information war on the families. You're going to have to gird yourself for that, because you're going to see news photographers and videographers zooming right on into the most upset, hysterical children and parents, and you're going to have to weather that. They're going to get you on that. Remember family separation. The country couldn't take it. We're not going to do family separation this time around. We learned our lesson. But the administration is saying that they are going to deport families. They are going to deport unaccompanied minors. And you're going to get an earful. You're sending them back to death. Remember what I told you about that? They're not sending them back to death. Sending them back to a poorer environment. And yes, you can feel for them. It's fair. I get it. Trust me. I've spent a lot of time at their campfires for hours listening to their stories, and they're poor, and things are unfair in their countries. They have terrible criminal justice systems. You can't go to the cops. They're more afraid of the cops than they are. And these are dysfunctional societies often, but they're not necessarily deadly. They're not deadly really at all. You even in El Salvador, they cleaned up the gang problem. But we're going to go after criminal aliens here, and that would include Tren de Aragua, this gang that we imported. There's going to be task forces that are just going to zero in on that. Why not? And I advocate that we zero in on the people from Muslim majority countries now, especially in light of the terror attack in Chicago, because none of those people were vetted properly when they came across. We just waved them all through, ignoring the normal counterterrorism measures that we have had in place since 9/11. And that's how that guy got in. It's not just him. We've had close calls. FBI last year rolled up 8 Tajikistanis in 3 states in a counterterrorism wiretap sting for plotting to build bombs of some kind. We don't know the whole story there, because they did not want to have a prosecution, so they deported them instead of prosecuting. So you won't ever know about that, at least until the Trump people get in and release the information on it. And there are many cases like this of people who came in and were plotting terror or suspected of plotting terror and got rolled up by the FBI. And this Chicago guy managed to get through. That has to be dealt with. And I think the Trump administration is going to be scoping according to its resources in the beginning. And as we go for a year or two, they'll be getting appropriations. You can expect to see some bills. It's a trifecta now. You got the Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House. You got about 2 years, but they're not going to wait. They're going to get bills passed that fix some things that need to be fixed in the Immigration and Nationality Act and the asylum laws that are going to be actual fixes, not this Lankford bill that they were talking about during the campaign. It's not going to be, remember that Lankford bill would have allowed something on the order of 1.8 million immigrants in over the border every year before they started to do an enforcement, when current law says that the number should be 0. So from 0 to 1.8 million is a non-starter. It was ridiculous. This bill that they're putting together now is going to actually have real impact, and hopefully a whole bunch of money for the deportation program and for task forces that will take on Tren de Aragua, that will work harder on counterterrorism in the beginning, and later you're going to start seeing a lot of families, and you're going to see people who are illegally present picked up, put in detention, and flown home. We have to have aircraft. We have to have countries of origin that don't want to take them back be made to take them back. And so there's a lot of work to be done. It's just going to take a minute, so chill. Okay. Real quickly, one thing I want to say is and I can take some questions. The Mexican government right now is for about a year now has been operating its military all over Mexico, rounding up immigrants from our border to keep them from crossing. The reason why you didn't see a lot of crossings during the campaign is because in December of last year, Biden went down there and sent Mayorkas and Blinken afterwards and cut some kind of a deal that's still a big mystery to this day, telling the Mexicans, hey, you need to shut the border numbers down so that we don't look bad during the campaign. And they did. The numbers fell by 80% crossing illegally. They could have done that at any time. Okay? Trump is not even in office. The election happens. Scheinbaum is off the hook, right? We did what you asked us. We tried to get you elected. We did what you asked us. Trump knew that Scheinbaum was going to pull the troops back and let them start crossing. And believe me, there were hundreds of thousands down there. I was among them. I went with the caravans. I was with the caravans. There were in Tapachula and Huixla and Tuxtla, all down there in the southern, along the border with Guatemala. And all they wanted to do is just have the Mexicans let them free to go to the border. They call this Operation Carousel. So Trump, in his last campaign rally, I think it was in North Carolina, fires a shot at Claudia Scheinbaum and says, if you let them through, if you relent and let them through, it's going to be 25% trade tariffs to start. And if you're still letting them through, it's going to be 50%. And if you're still letting them through, it's going to be 75%. And if you're still letting them through, it's going to be 100%. So guess what? They kept it going. And Trump was able to have that impact before he's even in office because then he put it in writing. Later, he said it's going to be 25% for sure. When I get in office, right off the bat, 25%. Scheinbaum's saying, I'm only going to take Mexicans back. We have our sovereignty and our pride. And then there was a meeting, and now they're like, okay, we're going to take them all back. So that's the difference. That's the difference. That's the silver lining. That's the happy talk part of this, where things are kind of looking up. You've got the border already down to 700 and 800 a day crossing. That sounds like a lot, but in December, before they went down there to Mexico to do that deal with them, we had 14,000 a day. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And today, it's 700, 800 a day. That, I believe, is what's acceptable is maybe 200 a day, and that they're runners. They're not going to be giving up like you saw them. They're just crossing and saying, where's the Border Patrol? Come get me. They're going to be running, hiding, dodging. It's going to be the strongest. Not going to have grandmothers with babies and anything like that anymore, running and hiding. It's going to be drug traffickers and criminals, people that have something to hide, that are going to be running. You're never going to get rid of that. Just accept that there's a certain amount of that kind of action, but it's the normal, old normal kind of action. So that's my silver lining. I'll take questions if you want to do that.
Go ahead. Do you want to just point him out and I'll get a mic to him? Oh, okay. There's one over here. Here you go.
This is going to sound very stupid, and I'm sorry, but so when you say everybody can leave soon, can all the trafficked people Just say, I want to go home.
You mean when you say trafficked people?
Human trafficked.
Yeah, well, so there's a difference between smuggled and trafficked. Trafficked are involuntary. Most people don't know this. I'm not sure. Are you talking about the children that are missing, that are unaccounted for, or?
All human trafficked people.
No. Those people are going to be held in indentured situations, and we're going to have to go using law enforcement, investigate, and bust down the doors and rescue them. That's how that's always worked. Hopefully, and I don't think that the Biden administration even shied away from doing those.
Is that what you're saying? I think she's saying like once a trafficked person is like rescued or whatever goes into custody, do they have to go back or can they stay?
Oh, I'm not sure. It'll be case by case basis, but probably they'll get to stay because they were involuntarily brought here. So there are other things to consider about those people.
Is this on, Aaron?
Let this do
Real
this
quick,
one.
kind of stupid question too, but when you said they're all going to be the detention centers are have been shut down, is that I guess am I to assume that those are all portable? That's why they're going to go to the military bases, or were these actual buildings that?
Those are brick and mortar buildings.
Okay, so there's a
Shuttered.
lot of those that are empty or and
Emptied
just
and
okay.
closed down, boarded up. They did that.
Yep. So my question is, how do we keep immigration from being a political football, right? Because the reality is the people on the left are letting in uneducated laborers who are taking jobs of the people who support the left, right? And the people on the right are really worried about economic and like the security of the country, right? So like my family's from Cuba, and back in the day, people at the southern border were all Mexicans, Central Americans, but they're all now from Ghana and China, and NGOs are bringing them over here. You know, how do we lock it down and make sure that things that like we saw in New Orleans don't happen again? And then like Homan said, he wanted to do press releases every week to say, hey, this is who we're kicking out, so that people know when they start throwing the sob stories out there, hey, this is the dude that we kicked out. He has 10 bodies.
Right. I mean, you know, how do we keep this from being a political football? I think we just did by electing Trump on that issue. Anybody who wants to be all open borders-y, they're going to lose.
Ready?
They're going to lose. That's what I think. But it probably will always be somewhat of a, you know, political because yeah, that's how we are. You know, I mean, we argue about things. So
Over here.
Oh, sure. So my question is, it seems to me that the whole border mess is more symptomatic than anything else. The problem is the policies of the left that advocate that sort of thing. And so my question is always, what's the motivation, right? It's bankrupting even the bluest cities. There doesn't appear to be anything that is necessarily positive that comes out of it. And so Trump's going to get in and he's going to fix the border problem in the next 4 years, and maybe J.D. Vance goes on for another 4 years, hopefully. But the reality is that at some point it's going to be the left again, and they're going to have the same motivation. So my question is, you know, between the census scam that was announced, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, and the idea of like, well, you naturalize all these guys and they vote Democrat. Like, what's the real motivation behind just letting every, you know, Joe Bag of Donuts guy from south of the border into the country?
So I'll give you the abridged version of chapter 4 of my book, which addresses that. I don't know, I think it's like 10,000 words or something, but there is an audio version if you're doing a long drive. So, yes, it will, the numbers that came in over the last 3 or 4 years will impact after the census, after the next census, the number of congressional districts. And in blue areas, of course, that's going to benefit Republicans. It's going to tend to benefit Republicans. I think that that's more of a cherry on top kind of thing, proposition, rather than the underlying motivating drive for them to have done this. Because I'm an old head journalist, a cynical kind of journalist, I have a different I have a different take on that, which is that it's about money. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at the people that populated the Biden administration, and I mean the White House advisory staff, the Domestic Policy Council, the National Security Council, the State Department, all the DHS agencies that went in there, they came from the NGO community. They didn't come from think tanks like normal. They came from those employers that advocate for migrant resettlement. They do migrant resettlement work. They aid and assist migrants' movement through Latin America, and they make their money that way. They get their money that way. And this reminds me of what Dwight Eisenhower argued on one of his last days in office, where he said, beware the military-industrial complex. That they ever get a hold of U.S. foreign policy, will be at war all the time because they're making money on the guns and bombs and bullets that they make. Beware the industrial complex. Well, what happened here is the migrant advocacy industrial complex got a hold of the immigration policy, and they enriched themselves beyond belief. And I mean billions and billions of dollars on all sides of the border. On this side in resettlement, they were receiving massive contracts to manage the crisis that they engineered. These are the people that engineered the crisis. And these are the people that then profited by the management of it. So I think that it's just that simple. The migrant industrial complex got a hold of this. Mayorkas himself was on the board of directors of HIAS, one of the biggest, one of the advocacy, migrant advocacy groups that made the most money of them all. He was on the board, and I wouldn't be surprised if he returned in some big 6-7 figure position. All of them, when they leave, are going to go back to the employers that they enriched, probably making big salaries. And I mean, that's, I'm not discounting the voter, the demographics of Democrats voting in the next, 10 years or something, but I think that's kind of a cherry on top. And plus, it's hard to really predict that, how that's going to work out. I half think that most Venezuelans are going to vote Republican.
Yeah.
But
I have a question about the NGOs. Is there a way to tie that funding that they're allowed to receive to the border entry? So, in other words, you must be at a legal point of entry to receive funding to help people versus we're just going to go down. You get your $1 billion wherever they come in.
I suspect that the Trump administration is going to prioritize some kind of policy about that, because I have a piece out, actually. I don't know if you read. Did you ask that because you read my piece in the Daily Wire or whatever? Okay. I had a piece out yesterday in the Daily Wire reporting that the United Nations and 230 NGOs are proposing a $1.4 billion budget to move migrants from Latin America to the border. They've been doing this for 5 years now. And the $1.4 billion, most of it's coming from you guys, tax money. And they've been doing this for years. Little by little, some of the reporting has gotten out, and it's made its way to lawmakers who are furious about the use of U.S. taxpayer money in a way that most people don't know about and didn't have a chance to properly debate and decide. So I think that something is going to happen, something creative, and there's demand for it. And because you have a trifecta, it's possible. So last year, a couple of years ago, when I first started reporting on the UN, and I've spent all kinds of time with them down there, I watch them. They hand out the debit cards. I think I'm the first one who ever reported about the debit cards back in 2021. And everybody's like, you're lying. No, I'm not. I got pictures and video. They're showing me their debit card. They admit it. It's in their documents. But anyway, it was just so outrageous, nobody wanted to believe it. They're doing it again, $260 million for 2025 for debit cards and cash and envelopes for the immigrants to keep them coming. So in those days, you had certain lawmakers, Lance Gooden, you had Andy Biggs, people in the Freedom Caucus who proposed bills to defund the UN. And it went nowhere because you had the Democrats in the other chamber and you had somebody in the White House who wasn't going to go for it. Now you got a trifecta, so there's hope. Here's my more silver lining. I don't know.
Got one right here. Go ahead, sir.
I've got a question. If you say you're sort of cynical over here,
Yeah.
but you sound quite optimistic that things are going to change. But Trump was up on this immigration bandstand the first time around, did nothing about it basically. He did a little, and then you've got the Uniparty that their history doesn't make me very optimistic, I guess, either. And what do you see as being different this time around with Trump? And I mean, they've got all this momentum, but
That's a great question. There are a few things that are different this time around. Number one is Trump won a resounding victory, and the polling analysis shows that it was very largely to do with this issue. That's different. The people are behind it fully now, whereas the first time, you didn't have a crisis anywhere near this proportion, this large. It was not, people didn't really, it was just, it wasn't as much of a thing. And number two is in the first term, there was a lot of litigation that bogged down the policies. Remember, he couldn't get the border wall up. There was this loophole called the Flores settlement. Google it, Flores settlement loophole, that required the release of family units, and he couldn't do anything about it. So the family units started pouring through. He didn't know what to do. That's why he invented Remain in Mexico, to push the family units back, and it fixed the problem, but it took time. This time, Remain in Mexico, for example, is fully vetted all the way to the Supreme Court, and so are a lot of other of his policies. They've already been through the battle, and they know it's coming. So the Trump people are, in all likelihood, I don't have any direct, I'm not citing anything, but I think that in all likelihood they are prepared to wage battle, making sure that the DOJ quickly moves cases up to the Supreme Court that need to be moved up there. But they do have good policies that are fully vetted now, and other things. But you're going to see lawsuits. You're going to see they're promising us. So it may not be as fast as you would like it to go, but I think they can sew the border up right away, like inauguration day plus an hour.
Todd, you have a background in anti-terrorism, and do you have any comments concerning the number of terrorists or their lethality that have come through the border? And thank you for taking the question.
Sure. I wrote the book on that. I have a book called America's Covert Border War. When I was with Texas DPS Intel, I ran the counterterrorism unit that dealt with all the reports about those guys coming across. We've had 400 plus on the FBI's terrorism watch list cross and get caught that we know of. But we've had 2.4 million gotaways, people that just got into the country and we never caught them. We got them on camera, but nobody got them. They got through. 2.4 million. So if you caught 400 on the terror watch list and there's 2.4 million that got clean away at least, that's not good. That tells you that there's a problem out there, and the FBI knows it. Let me give you an example. There was an ISIS smuggling organization operating in Mexico and further south. They broke it up. They got intel and found that it had moved 350 people into the country. So they've spent a year and a half tracking down each and every one of them systematically. Not an easy thing. They disappear. They're running around. Nobody knows the last address, whatever. To interview them to make sure that they weren't bad guys. An ISIS smuggling organization is going to move ISIS guys in. Why not? So there's a lot of that sort of thing happening. The Tajikistanis that I told you about, they rolled up 8 of them in a big counterterrorism with like a wiretap sting. The only reason we know about it is because it leaked. Somebody leaked it. Like, they weren't going to tell us. So I have to assume that there's a lot going on that is not public at this point. But I will tell you that every time that there is one, and plenty of those on the FBI terror watch list were accidentally released in the crush of chaos on the border. They ran their names but let them go before the result came back. And so there's a report out there, House Homeland Security Committee report, that said 99 on the FBI terror watch list got free and accidentally released into the country. And I've written about a dozen of those ones that we know about. And I have to say, there must be more. There must be more. You have to assume it anyway. And yes.
2 days ago, the Biden administration took Cuba off the terror country watch list. What are the implications of that?
First of all, that's probably going to get reversed right away. Marco Rubio's out there saying, yeah, no, that's not going to stand. The problem with, now I'm not a Cuba expert, but the reason Cuba is on that list is because they harbor our enemies. They harbor weather underground people. They harbor bad guys that are wanted by the U.S. Terrorist bad guys that are wanted by the U.S. And furthermore, they allow their island to be used for special interest alien smuggling. Those are people from Muslim majority countries. They let them use the island to hop into Nicaragua, etc. That's a problem. It's not going to stand. I don't think that's going to stand for long on that one, so there shouldn't be any long-term implications.
Hi, Todd. Thank you for being here and for all the work you've done. We really appreciate it. You've talked about the ideology of the leftist bureaucracy that allows them to support illegal immigration, money, and just ideology. I was wondering, how do they rationalize, the inevitable terrorism that's going to happen? The terrorists that are getting in, they know they're coming in. They have to. I mean, if they don't, that would be totally ignorant. So they must. How is that not treason? I'm not sure. But anyway, how do they rationalize it?
They deny it. They just say it's not true. That's how. I know. I've testified. I testified before Congress last year on the terrorism threat coming over the border with minds that were greater than mine, and they had a couple of guys on the other side that were like, "Oh yeah, that's no big deal. We've never had a terror attack." They'll say, except now we have in Chicago.
Back here.
How can the American public be educated about this?
Is that not working?
How can the American public be educated about this when there are people either watch Fox News or they watch the other three, and the other three don't really cover this? The major papers, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, New York Times, they don't cover this. So how do you get this out there?
Okay, that's a good question. I would, like, I'm speaking as a former reporter. This was my thing for a long time. That you have to gravitate to sources of news and information, credible sources of news and information that are on the conservative sphere, this conservative side of the sphere, because those are the outlets that care about this, because their readers care about this. And to stay away, I can't even believe I have to say that, but to stay away from the disinformation that is in the old traditional media. Some people call it the mainstream media. I don't think it's mainstream anymore at all. They're just the old media that are super liberal and are in denial and are the ones that'll tell you that there's nothing to be done about this. It's not policy at all. It's just that there's people roaming around the world, and we're going to get some.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you educate the 49% though that didn't vote for Donald Trump?
You can't. I don't think you can. It's just the way it is. Maybe they'll self-educate by the fact that they lost power.
Mm-hmm.
They lost the White House over this.
Okay, we got one here, and then we'll do one more. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you again for being here. And I was going to address that same topic, basically. You've got 1 foot in old media and probably 1 foot in new media. You're on YouTube. You do podcasts. I think that's how the American public completely understood Trump, and Trump understood them on this exact issue. So I want to ask you if you feel like my kids don't watch TV news. Don't watch it, period. And they're all under 30. Older people watch TV news, CNN, NBC, all that, Fox. No one else is watching. So as a journalist that's still working, you're on the ground. The guerrilla journalists on YouTube are, I think, what I give a lot of credit to, people understanding a lot of issues. And the old media, it's dead.
Yeah.
No one's watching TV news. No one reads the Indianapolis Star. And we shouldn't worry about it. So my question is, what do you think we should do now to stay on top of things? To his point, how do we stay informed? How do we stay in front of all the shenanigans and the lies of people not telling us the truth?
Same answer.
Yeah.
You got to go to the media outlets that care and are willing to report it. Homan is saying, yeah, we're going to be transparent. We're going to say, in the end, he's going to be a government official. They're going to be like all government officials. I don't know. But same answer. I don't have a whole lot to add to that one.
So we have one question left. I think I'm going to let it go to Monsignor Shadle. What's your question? Do you have one you'd like to ask?
Todd, you've talked a lot about the elite, the government, letting all these people in. What is their motivation? Or are they actually that stupid? Or why are they doing this? As you said, are they just ignoring they're just oblivious?
Well, I did answer that. I think it's about money and power. That block of people on the progressive left were desperately needed by the Biden administration to emerge from a field of 15 candidates during the primary and then to beat Donald Trump. And he had to pay him back with power. That's what they wanted. They wanted that portfolio. They did other stuff too. And they came from the NGOs, non-governmental organizations, largely, and they fed themselves contracts and grants for 4 years straight.
I would just say, unfortunately, I think some of those NGOs that we're talking about are affiliated with the Catholic Church.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it.
But they need to wake up.
Yeah. One of the biggest recipients of this largesse was Catholic Charities, Caritas, all those organizations. But it's not just the Catholics; it's all of them. It's the Lutherans, the Jews have highest. Everybody got a piece of this thing.
So just super quickly, so our Indiana General Assembly is in session. Just real quickly, what are 2 policies that you think that citizens should be advocating for them to do in order to get in front of this immigration crisis?
Well, I don't think the first one is, cooperate with ICE in every possible way. I don't know what the policy is now. If you're sanctuary, if your blue cities are blue enough.
Yeah, there is a sanctuary city policy, but they don't follow it. So just really quickly, in Lake County, in 6 months, they had 30 ICE detainer requests. And guess how many they honored? 0. Monroe County is the same way. So
Okay, fix it.
Yeah.
fix
We are.
that. And number two, E-Verify, which is the system that in Texas, I think, well, in a lot of states, they won't require it because they like the cheap labor, including the Republicans. So
that's
you have
very
to
true.
overcome your own party.
We're used to that.
Do E-Verify, but it weeds out. It's easy to defraud is one problem, but there are ways to fix the fraud and require E-Verify throughout Indiana, so that you
Thank you.
can't have illegal workers taking American jobs.
Understood. Thank you.
Big round of applause. Thank you so much. We could not be more grateful for you taking the time. That was remarkable. We can't thank you enough for coming at such a busy time of year. And I want to thank all of you, too, for coming out. And I also want to thank our comptroller, Elise Nishala, who's here. Please stand, Elise. For those of you that don't know, we appreciate it. This has been a busy week, and we appreciate you coming. And we want to invite everybody to please stay. There's dessert, beer, wine. So please stay, mix and mingle, and socialize. And I also would like to say, I really want to thank those that volunteered and helped out tonight. Chris Mallon, Nancy Moore, Tylene Eckhart, and of course Linda Oldegus, who donates all of her time to capture our events with her beautiful photography, My Indie Image. And she's not here tonight, but Molly Evans, who's a graphic designer, designs all of our programs and things of that nature. So we want to thank all of those people. So please stay and enjoy yourself. Thank you.